Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How's it going?
Pretty good. Just really looking forward to getting into this. I spent my whole day today in the classroom. So I usually when I'm in a classroom these days, I'm more likely to be teaching than being taught. But I was a student here for today.
Yeah, you were mentioning just before we hit record, you had to get recertified for your first aid.
Yeah, so I got to do it every few years. So I was due. Mine was expiring next week. So yeah, I spent my day getting all that refreshed.
Yeah, how'd it go?
Oh, it's fine. Yeah. I feel like it was a good update, but yeah, I've done that course many times over the years. So hopefully I'll never have to use it though.
Well, I've been trying to keep warm all this week. Our house has been so hot all summer, but now it's kind of flipped, and now we're trying to keep the house to 19 degrees, which is a little chilly when you've gotten used to the mid-20s. But no, it's good. Played some soccer in the rain tonight, so it was good to do that. But yeah, excited to go from playing soccer to chatting about soccer.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. So if you are a new listener to our podcast, Scott, refresh our memories there. What is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
Yeah, 196 episodes in. I don't know how many times I've rattled off this mission statement, Jason, but our podcast focuses on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, post-secondary, and professional levels. We talk a lot about Cavalry FC and the Calgary Wild, as well as the players from the city's grassroots soccer community up to the competitive amateur and university leagues. So this week, we're going to talk about all those things as per usual. Preview Cavalry FC versus Forge FC this Saturday. That's a huge game in the Canadian Premier League. We'll also preview the Calgary Wild's home game against league-leading Ottawa Rapid in the Northern Super League. And we have an interview as well.
Yeah, we had a chance to interview new Calgary Wild signing, Taylor Otto. She's a center back for the Wild. And we had a chance to interview her yesterday, talked about her joining the club and how it's been going for the first, I guess, few weeks, right? She's been, I think, 4 matches she's been with the team.
Yeah, I think 4 matches, she said. And great to catch up with her. She is one of 4 recent mid-season signings. And it was good to chat with her about, as you mentioned, her career thus far, which has included stints in Scotland and Australia, in addition to some games in the NWSL. And she had a lengthy career in the NCAA before that with the North Carolina Tar Heels. So we talked about her career, and we also talked about her first few weeks with the Calgary Wild, which has been a bit of a roller coaster, to say the least.
We'll get to that interview in our Wild segment, but we're going to start this episode off with talking about Cavalry FC and their big first place matchup.
Hi, everyone. This is Nate Edwards. You're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So I would argue this Saturday's home game for Cavalry FC against Forge FC is their biggest game of the year thus far, Jason. Obviously, you know, the game against Vancouver Whitecaps in the Canadian Championship, the home game that is, you could have made that argument. But I think, you know, this game against Forge on Saturday is crucial for the overall CPL championship run. Cavalry are coming into it in second place, but it's very tight, and Forge is just ahead of them. And, you know, a win at Spruce Meadows at home this weekend could really set Cavalry up for a potential run to the 2026 regular season title.
If Cavalry gets 3 points here, they're really in a position where they have a good shot at first place overall and the Shield. If they lose, though, I think it's going to be, with the time remaining and the points they'll be dropping, it'll be a tall order to have a real chance at that first place spot.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the table, Forge are just 1 point ahead of Cavalry at the moment, but they do have a game in hand. So if they win that game in hand and they win this game, that becomes a 7-point gap, right? Yeah. So that would be, obviously, it wouldn't put Cavalry out of the picture, but it would make for quite the steep mountain to climb for the remaining 13, 12 games, or however many are left. But yeah, a Cavalry win puts them 2 points ahead of Forge, albeit Forge would continue to have a game in hand. But then it really becomes that kind of neck and neck race to the final. Of course, these two teams do have another game at Spruce Meadows later this season. So it's too early to say that this game will determine who wins the CPL Shield, but you can't help but think it's going to play a big role.
Yeah, totally. It is. It's a huge match overall, and the matches are always tight. The two previous meetings in Hamilton in April, it was a 0-0 draw, and then in May, Forge won 1-0. So should be a good one.
Yeah, it's interesting with the scheduling this year that it's taken until mid-August for us to see a Forge game at Spruce Meadows. But I think, Cavalry will be pleased with the fact that they got both of their games in Hamilton out of the way so early. Only picking 1 point up in Hamilton. I thought they would need more than that this year, but obviously Forge at home has been such a juggernaut these last 2 years that maybe 1 point from 2 games wasn't as bad as I initially thought it was.
Let's talk about players. We don't know the status of Dan Klomp or Gauthier Natigny. Both of them missed last week's match. That was not the first match that Natigny missed. Was the first one Klomp missed. I don't really remember him ever missing a game from injury before. So both those players would be typically, written into the starting 11 pretty definitively. So
yeah, Cavalry is obviously going to want both of those players in the lineup for this game. Klomp, I think, he's so important both defensively and he offers a lot going forward as well on set pieces in particular. And Gauthier Natigny, they're really going to want his pace and his dynamism on the left wing. So they don't necessarily need those two players to play well, as we've seen before. But they're obviously two names that are put on Cavalry's team sheet very early on by Tommy Wheeldon Jr., I would imagine.
We do know that Eric Kobza will be missing this match. The way the CPL yellow card accumulation rules are, essentially, once you get to that first suspension, like once the suspensions become much more frequent. So I think, after you hit 5 yellow cards in a season, then it goes to 8 yellow cards in a season, you get another suspension. So anyway, I did verify with on the CPL disciplinary report, he will miss this match.
Okay, all right. That's a big loss for Cavalry, considering, won't they also still be without Michael Baldissimo?
Well, I guess we would presume they are. He's been out for the last couple weeks. And again, I don't have a lot of definitive information. I'm kind of under the impression it's something that's going to keep him out for a while, but I don't have any confirmation of that.
Yeah, that was that no contact injury in the home game against Quebec Super a couple weeks ago when he was helped off the pitch. So Kobza and Baldissimo, both defensive midfielders. That leads us to suspect that starting in central midfield will probably be Harry Payton. But then who else? Who do you think would be next to Harry Payton without Kobza and Baldissimo available? Or do you think that they would change their style and their formation and maybe only play with one central midfielder?
Well, they could do something like they've done in the past where, they start Knije Elva and Tobias Warshevsky up front, and then, they would just have, Camargo and Payton as the interior players, just two. I guess that's possible. Or maybe they would add Nico Myroniak potentially. Another person that also could be a possibility would be Maël Henry. He's back from injury, although I think based on the length of time he's been out and the amount of time he's played in match conditions, he's probably better served to be a substitute than a starter right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So curious to see how Tommy Wheeldon Jr. lines up for this game. I imagine Cavalry are going to want to play more on the front foot. Forge is a great team, great at keeping the ball and playing attacking football, but Cavalry can do that too. So all I can say is, as usual, when these two teams are on the pitch, Jason, is that don't miss it, because there's always some fireworks.
A couple other player movement things to talk about. We'll actually know this by the time the match happens on Saturday. The deadline to decide whether U Sports players are going to be going back to school or they're going to stay with the team, that deadline is August 15th. So Owen Antoniak and Luke Ihama are both on U Sports contracts. So I would presume that if they're being sent back, they would not be eligible for selection on Saturday. But if they're sticking around, they would be.
Mm-hmm. I think we speculated that Owen Antoniak is probably going to stick around. We've seen him called upon more and more in the last couple weeks And he did score his first goal in the CPL. So wouldn't be surprised if he's going to stick around Spruce Meadows for the rest of the season, Jason. But Luki Hama, you have to assume, will be going back to Ontario, to Toronto Metropolitan, as I don't believe he has played at all for the first team this year.
Played some matches for the APL team, but he hasn't dressed as yet. Another thing to mention, Scott, is the transfer window is closing next week on August 20th. So no word if Cavalry is bringing in any new players, but one thing I would suggest that could be possible is they have open roster spots available. You would think that if they do decide to bring in anyone, they would probably be someone who could help with the U21 minute situation.
And there it is. We are officially talking about U21 minutes again, a staple of the YYC soccer podcast for the last few years. But no, I joke, but you're right. Cavalry are still well short of the 2,000 minutes that are required by U21 players. And the player that they've been using to generate most of those minutes thus far, I actually didn't realize this rule, Jason, but he caps out at 1,000 because he's technically on loan from another club.
Yes, Adam Perlman, even though he's played more than 1,000 minutes, he only that's all he can count for. It is possible, of course, that the existing players could still help achieve that 2,000 number, but it'd probably be easier if you did bring in another potential option. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would think if anyone does come in, they probably would be someone who could help with these minutes.
Yeah, because so far, apart from Perlman, their U21 minutes have been limited to Nico Moroniuk, who's generated 264 minutes thus far. Joe Holiday, who had that one game in net, so he has generated 90. And then James McGlinchey, who I think his sub appearances have combined for 60 minutes. So at the moment, they're at 1,414. Kudos, Jason, for digging that number up. Which means they need about 600 more spread across, 10 or 11 games. So I think you said it averages out to almost 50 minutes per game for Cavalry need to be played by U21s.
If you look at that number, that 1,414 minutes, if you don't include the Adam Perlman 1,000 minutes, they've been averaging about 26 minutes a game. So if you look at it that way, they've been averaging 26 non-Perlman minutes a game. They need about 49 or 50. It has to be stepped up for sure.
Yeah, so that either means calling more on Moroniuk, Holiday, and McGlinchey, or as you mentioned, signing another adept and capable U21 player who's going to help out on that front for the rest of the season before August 20th.
Hi, I'm Taylor Otto with the Calgary Wild, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Okay, let's talk about Calgary Wild. They're going to be playing at McMahon Stadium on Saturday afternoon against the Ottawa Rapid.
Yeah, the league-leading Ottawa Rapid, who are having a fantastic 2026 season, currently 6 points ahead of Montreal Roses, who are in second place. Going to be a very difficult one for the Wild, although they are coming into this, Jason, on the backs of a 2-game win streak. It's been a while since we've been able to say that.
Yeah, the last couple of performances have been quite encouraging. You know, the match in the Canadian Championship. One thing that the Wild can say is they were able to knock off their semi-pro competition, and the Montreal Roses were not. And it didn't end well for the Roses coach afterwards.
No, who was removed, fired after the game.
Yeah, you know, I guess it just shows you a bit about the tolerance level in Montreal. Like that team's in second place behind the Rapid and have been playing generally pretty well. But after this loss, they basically instantly fired the coach. So who knows? Maybe there was more involved than just losing to Simcoe County, but I don't think that helped him in any way.
No. So anyways, about this game, as mentioned, I think it's going to be a difficult one for the Wild because they are still missing some key pieces and have added players to the injury list who did play in those 2 wins. So Maggie Doherty Howard is still out with an injury, the Calgary Wild captain. Maya Jones is now listed as injured, and Jackie Sawicki is listed as doubtful. She played a few minutes last match as a sub, but not great for the Wild to be without those 3 players in particular. As well as Grace Doherty, I believe she's still going to be missing from this one due to her red card suspension.
Yeah, I double checked on that one too. And on the AMSL player availability report, it said she's still out with suspension. And then I went and checked the Canada Soccer disciplinary website, and it said that it was a 2-match suspension. So she should be back for next match, but she's out for this one.
This will definitely be the longest the Wild has been without Grace Story, I think.
Well, I don't know if she's ever actually missed a game before. Like, she was probably one of the only players last year that didn't miss a game. So it's definitely different out there, I guess. So the Rapid and the Wild have faced each other 3 times this season, and it hasn't gone well for the Wild. All 3 games have been losses, but I guess you could say there maybe is a silver lining potentially, if you want to look at it as being glass half full as opposed to half empty.
Yeah, I mean, overall, those 3 games, the Rapid have won by an aggregate score of 10-4. So while the Wild have conceded more than 3 goals per average in their games against Ottawa this season, they've also scored more goals against Ottawa than I believe any other club in the NSL. The Wild have 12 goals this season, and 4 of them have come against Ottawa. However, Ottawa has scored 34 goals this season, and 10 of them have come against Calgary.
But, you look at the 3 results, and the first one was Ottawa wins 5-2. Second one was Ottawa wins 3-1. Third one, Ottawa wins 2-1. So again, like if you want to try and look at the bright side of all of it, each time the loss has been less bad.
Smaller. Yeah, they're trending in the right direction in their games against Ottawa.
Wow, are we really trying to be positive here or what?
Yeah, but I mean, I think you could also point out that those first 2 games were in Ottawa, which is, I think, a stadium that the Wild has tended to struggle in. But that July game in Calgary, that was just a 2-1 loss. So not a bad showing against the league leaders the last time these 2 teams played.
So I guess now would be a good time for us to run our interview with Taylor Otto, who is one of the 4 new players that have joined the Wild here in July, brought in by new head coach Leah Blaney. And it was good to get a fresh perspective from a Wild player, one who hasn't been around all this time, just to sort of, get an idea of what they're thinking walking into playing for a last place team.
Yeah. I mean, and I think her answers reflected that she's really approaching this half season with her new team through a glass half full perspective, and but with the understanding that they just have to take it game by game and try to make those incremental improvements that Leah Blaney has talked about. So let's run that interview with Taylor Otto, and our listeners can become acquainted with one of the Wild's new signings.
I'd like to welcome Taylor Otto to the podcast. Taylor is a defender for the Calgary Wild. She's recently signed with the club. Welcome to the podcast and welcome to Calgary, Taylor.
Hi, thank you. Happy to be here.
I guess a good place to start, Taylor, is let's talk about your background, your playing career. Just kind of run through things for us for, where you grew up, went to school, and also played as a pro so far.
I originally grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and then I moved to North Carolina when I was like about 12-ish, around that time. And I ended up going to college at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I was there for 4 years, and then I was drafted to Racing Louisville in the NWSL. And I was there for about a year and a half. And then I went to Celtic for a season in Scotland. And then I was an international replacement player for Gotham FC for about a month and a half. And then I went to Melbourne City in Australia, and I've been there for the past 3 years. And then now I'm here.
How did the opportunity to join the Wild arise, and what did you know about the Northern Super League before you signed?
I really just through my agent, they showed interest, and I was, Leah is Australian, so I think she obviously is in the Australian market quite a bit. And yeah, I didn't know a ton about the league other than that it's growing fast and that there's a lot of investment in it, which is really appealing to a lot of players and exciting to be a part of. So yeah, that's kind of all I've really known previously about the league, which is good.
So you've been here for a few weeks now, I think. What's first impressions of Calgary so far? Just the city? I'm not sure how much time you spent in Canada previous to coming here for this.
This is actually my first time in Canada, but it's been good. I haven't been able to explore too much because we've had 2 away games, so we've been traveling quite a bit. So I've actually seen Toronto and Vancouver and Calgary all in 3 weeks, but not much of it. Yeah, so I'm just I think I'll be having my car soon, so I'll be able to explore a little bit more. And I've heard it's a lot of beautiful places 30, 45 minutes away. So I'm excited to explore.
Obviously, this has been a tough season for the Wild so far.
Mhm.
Obviously, a couple of great wins on the bounce recently, but before that, a lot of struggles, right? And I was curious, coming into the club when they're going through a tough time like this, like, is that a new challenge for you? Or, I mean, did it intrigue you? Like, this is a great challenge as a defender to see if I can help this team? Or, like, what was kind of going through your mind when looking at the team's record this year and the opportunity to join?
I definitely think it's challenging for any player to come into an environment like this where unfortunately like you haven't been winning. I think that the team unfortunately has had some like hard goes with not having a coach for most of the season, having an interim coach, getting a new coach, and then now that coach kind of having to go on leave for a little bit. I think they've been kind of dealt a hard hand. But when I spoke to Leah, she had a really big vision for the club and she expressed how much that the club like believed in this team and wants this team to get better and all of the plans for that. So I think that was really intriguing for me to see that even though they're kind of struggling right now, they have a lot of investment in plans and things that they want to do and they want to do better and they're eager to win the league and do all these things even if that's not the case right now. So yeah, that was what kind of drew me here.
So what has it really been like even, integrating into a team in mid-season? Like most of this group has been together, well, for the full existence of the team since, for a year and a half. So what's it like to walk in as a new player?
Yeah, I mean, the girls have been super welcoming and super nice, but it's obviously been challenging, especially with having so many games right away, kind of just being dropped into it and trying to adjust to the style of play and what we're trying to do, as well as they're still trying to like create an identity in who we want to be as a team as well. So I think, yeah, jumping into that has been challenging and will take a bit of time, but yeah, I've enjoyed it so far.
Obviously, you talked about Leah Blaney joining
Mhm.
recently, and bringing you in, and then leaving quite abruptly so shortly after you arrived. Has that been kind of tough to go through? And how has it been with Corey Babington taking over on an interim basis?
I think, yeah, it's definitely hard that Leah's not here, but I think like there's other things that are more important than soccer. And yeah, we all have her back and are hoping that she'll be able to return as soon as possible whenever she's ready. And I think Corey's done a good job in making sure that the team's in high spirits and like continuing forward and still trying to instill the plan that Leah has, which is really important for us. So yeah, I think he's done a good job of it. And we're excited to have Leah back whenever she's ready.
So I know it's only been a few matches in the NSL so far, but what are your first impressions of the league overall, like compared to well, you've played in the NWSL, but what about even say the A League and playing in Scotland? Like what different styles, what about the level? You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I obviously haven't played in too many games, like league games, but I would say that it's just like a little bit more transitional than the leagues that I've been in the past. I think the NWSL is quite transitional as well, and obviously it's the best league in the world. So I think the NSL has the opportunity to get there, and it's started really well. But comparing to like my last experience with Melbourne City, we played a lot, which I really liked. But yeah, it wasn't as transitional that league, and so I think that this league is very athletic and kind of brings that part to the game that is a little bit more something that I want to like get better at and be more challenged in that way. So I'm trying to see if I can bring my quality on the ball as well as the physicality of my side as well. So yeah.
There's a lot of Americans on the team this year.
Mhm.
How has that been for general integration and maybe has it helped with homesickness? Do you talk much with the American teammates of yours about where you guys are from and your playing background, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's been nice. I've known a few of the girls who were here previously, which is really nice. It always makes it easier having a familiar face and people you're like a little bit closer to. So that's been really great. I spent a lot of time with Jordan at Louisville, so she's been really helpful in helping me kind of adjust. But yeah, honestly, like American or not, I think all of the girls have been really welcoming and yeah, it's been really nice.
The Wild are over halfway through the schedule at this point, and a playoff position is it's certainly mathematically possible, but it's a tough hill to climb. So where does that leave you as a team going forward for the rest of the year? Like, what kind of goals are you trying to set in regards to this season specifically?
I think, at least for me coming in, I felt like our first goal was like getting that first win in the league. Like that was really important to us. And I know in that cup game, we wanted to win that and like win it with a statement to like kind of change the trajectory of the season. And so we were able to do that. And then we were able to also get that win as well against Vancouver. So I think really for us, like we know we're not mathematically out, but we're kind of looking at each game at a time. Like, can we win this game? Can we start implementing the things that we want to change about how we've been performing? And can we keep getting better each game? So I think for us, like, obviously we would love to win the rest of our games like everyone wants to, but realistically, will that happen? Not sure. But we definitely are trying to make sure that we are progressing and creating an identity of who we are as a team, I think, by the end of the season.
On a similar vein, Taylor, can you talk about your personal goals coming into a new club midway through the season? Like, what do you hope to achieve personally?
Yeah, I want to help the team as much as I can. I think I was at another club for a really long time and I loved my experience there, but I was like quite comfortable there. So I kind of wanted to change scenery, change the league, change everything a little bit and kind of see how it'll go. But yeah, I want to continue progressing as a player, play as well as I can, learn from the coaches, learn from the players, and yeah, hopefully help this team become a winning team.
All right. Well, I think we're getting pretty close to the end. I did want to just ask one more tactical type thing before we wrap it up. I seem to remember this reading in your bio when you were announced, but I know your first goal there at Spruce Meadows, like you were up on a set piece. Am I thinking about this right? It made a comment that you're quite involved in set pieces. Is that something that's kind of an area of specialty for you?
Yeah, at my last club, I definitely was like in set pieces quite a bit in regards to like heading and stuff like that, and kind of getting on the front post, getting on the back post. So yeah, like I love being in set pieces. Obviously, as a defender, you don't get near the goal a lot, so those are our opportunities to kind of make a difference in that part of the game. So yeah, hopefully I can score a few more in the set pieces that we get this year. So.
I think that was our last question for you, Taylor, but is there anything else that you'd like to mention, message to the fans or anything like that before we end off on this interview?
Yeah, I think all of the players and even just like the little bit that I've been here, have really appreciated the support from the fans, whether we've won or lost in the hard and the good times. And yeah, I think that's really important for us and it goes a long way. So we really appreciate it.
Best of luck in the rest of the season. I guess, there still is what, 10, 11
10
games left?
Yeah, it's quite a bit to go still. So
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for your time today, Taylor. We really appreciate the conversation and yeah, best of luck with the rest of the season.
yeah, no problem. Thank you guys.
Hi, this is Bori Falaye, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So we don't have Alberta Premier League action to talk about anymore this season, but there is still one other Alberta Soccer League that's still playing matches and actually just finished up its regular season.
That being, of course, the Alberta Major Soccer League. We talk about it less and less every summer, it seems, Jason, just with the growing prevalence of the Alberta Premier League. But yeah, the AMSL regular season has wrapped up and provincials are happening this weekend in Edmonton.
Yeah, so in provincials, be 4 teams. It'll be the top 2 teams from the North Division, top 2 teams from the South Division. So Calgary has one representative, Calgary Rangers, who has never played in AMSL before. It's their first year in the league. They finished in second place behind Lethbridge. So they will be going to the AMSL playoffs.
Yes, and they will be taking on Edmonton Drillers and Edmonton Southwest United, as well as Lethbridge FC, who topped the South Division standings. You can tell, Jason, that Lethbridge FC is still taking the AMSL really serious with no local APL team in that city. You have to assume that the other Calgary teams are focused more on that league now. But Lethbridge, they've had a team in AMSL for as long as I can remember, and it is a big deal down there. They even have local news coverage or local news outlets, sports coverage of Lethbridge FC every summer.
Well, when you look at it too, like the Edmonton teams that are in the playoffs are two teams that do not have AMS or APL representation, like the Drillers and their Southwest United. Neither of those clubs are playing in the APL either.
Yeah, seems like not a coincidence.
And we should also mention the women's division in the AMSL. The Calgary representative in provincials will be the Calgary Blizzard. They won the South Division, and they will be at provincials along with Lethbridge Football Club, Northwest United St. Albert Impact, which is one team. I guess it's a combination of those two clubs, and FC Victoria. So that's who will be playing on the women's side. So last week we talked about this new mini soccer pitch being built downtown called Kickstart Commons. And Scott, this is another example of your day job intersecting with the podcast. You had an assignment about this project that was published today.
Yeah, this is an article I did for the Calgary Herald about Kickstart Commons, which, Jason, we were off with our assumption that this was the federally funded mini fields that had been announced just, I think, a few weeks before this was announced by Parks Foundation Calgary. As it so happens, that is actually a different project, although there are some similarities, and it makes sense why we were confused by that. But the Kickstart Commons is, in my opinion, a great initiative. It's being led by Parks Foundation Calgary in collaboration with the City of Calgary's downtown strategy team. It's basically a mini pitch that's going to be built on what is currently a city-owned parking lot in the downtown. There will be artificial turf. There will be some benches and seating areas. There will be some lighting. And it's going to be open and accessible throughout the day. So it'll be a perfect place to just drop by and play some pickup soccer, maybe some 3v3 or some 4v4, which is great because Calgary is really lacking in fields overall, but particularly those small-sized fields that are so prevalent in other countries.
Yeah, and I know last week you talked about the importance of making sure that this would be, something that you could just show up and play as opposed to something you'd have to schedule and book. And it looks like that is indeed going to be the case. I did want to mention, though, if you can't wait until this project is done, I think you said it's going to be done early next year, but there actually is an option in downtown Calgary right now that I just discovered this past weekend.
Yeah, this is that it's a grass field down in Eau Claire by the former heliport, right?
Yeah, I was cycling through Eau Claire last weekend, and I noticed this. Yeah, right beside the old heliport, which has now been turned into a basketball court, there's a couple of nets set up there, and some lines have been painted on the grass. Clearly, this pitch is being used because there was not much left of the grass. It's pretty much playing on dirt at this point. So there is a way to actually play a little bit of football downtown even now.
Yeah, I think that was a field that was set up temporarily during the World Cup, because wasn't like Cavalry and the Calgary Wild in collab with the city were offering little like coaching clinics during the World Cup.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. It's another potential option. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this Kickstart Commons. And I have that right, Scott. When you said when you were doing the story for today that the plan is this thing is going to be up and running early next year.
Yeah, I assume. I mean, if they say February, that doesn't make sense because it's snowing usually and cold in that month. But I would assume that by the time the snow melts next winter, this field will be unveiled. So maybe that would be like April or May 2027. They didn't cite a particular month, but that's the implication I got. Like construction is going to start this summer on excavating the current parking lot. So yeah, I'm really excited for this, Jason. And it is a free amenity. It's just a park technically. So you don't have to book it. You don't have to pay. You just bring a ball and some friends and you get a game of pickup going.
Perfect. So Scott, before we wrap it up here, a couple of things we wanted to talk about. Wanted to talk about one of our former podcast guests who was plying his trade in Europe, and he has now moved and he is plying his trade for a different team in Europe.
Yeah, this is Bori Falaye, who last season was with KF Tirana in the Albanian Super League, one of the giants of Albanian football, although a team that has really fallen off in recent years. Didn't have a great season, despite being the country's, I think, most decorated soccer team. But yeah, Bori Falaye didn't score a ton of goals in Albania and has since relocated to a club in Kazakhstan's top flight called Irtish Pavlodar in the city of Pavlodar. And I looked up the club, Jason, and I love their stadium. It's the most Soviet-looking stadium I've ever seen, but it's actually a decent size. I think it fits around 13,000 fans, according to the stadium's Wikipedia page. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I'm pulling it up right now because I wanted to see the stadium because I know you talked about it.
the blue and red seats, and then looks like a North Korean.
Oh, and its name, the Central Stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely looks like something from that era. Yeah, I guess another adventure for Bori. I think when we looked at the table, the club is near the bottom. I think they're in the relegation zone right now, or flirting with relegation anyway.
Yeah, I think second from bottom. And Kazakhstan has a summer league, so it's not like they're just about to get things going. Like I think their season is well underway, if not like in the back nine at the moment. Teams have played 20 plus games, and there's 16 teams in the top division, and Irtish Pavlodar is in 15th place.
But Scott, in your research, you realized that there's actually one very notable player who's currently playing in Kazakhstan.
At least one, yeah. That being Nani, who Manchester United fans will probably remember. I can't remember which years he was playing at Old Trafford, but it was back when I was watching every Manchester United game as a kid. So he used to line up alongside, Chicharito and Cristiano Ronaldo. And, he's in his late 30s now. I think he's like 38 or 39, but he's currently playing for FC Aktobi, who are in the Kazakhstan Premier League and are currently in 5th place. So maybe our former podcast guest will play against Nani in the coming days or months.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting.
And Jason, just looking at the schedule now, it does appear that FC Irtish Pavlodar will face FC Aktobi on August 30th. So just in a couple of weeks.
Cool. And we also want to mention that some young Calgarians have gotten call-ups to the Canadian youth setups. There's a U15 and a U16 camp that's going to be in Chile. It's happening next week, I guess. 3 Calgarians on the U15 team and 1 on the U16 team.
Yeah, good representation by Calgarians on these two teams. On the U15s, there's Rowan Igarevba, who's playing with Cavalry 2, which is surprising, Jason. If he's U15 to already be playing in the APL, that's definitely an eyebrow raiser.
I think on the Cavalry 2 Instagram page a while back, they mentioned that he's the youngest player to ever play for that club. So I think that was a couple weeks ago, before this was announced. So he's definitely the youngest player on a very young Cavalry 2 team.
And then the other 2 are both from Southwest United, but you put here both in brackets, maybe involved with CF Montreal. Have they since moved to Quebec, do you think?
In all the information I could find, it was talking mostly about how they played for Southwest United, but then in the actual press release from Canada Soccer, they were both listed as CF Montreal players. I tried to go to the CF Montreal webpage, and their youth rosters are a little bit lacking. So I couldn't verify that, but I don't see why it would be wrong. So they're Southwest United players. That's originally, I think that's where they developed for the most part.
Yeah, and those, I don't think we said their names, but Cruz Nalder, and then the other one, not sure this first name. It could just be Owen Garner, but Owen is spelled E-O-I-N, so that could be a mispronunciation. But Rowan, Owen, and Cruz.
And the Calgarian that is on the U16 team is another Cavalry 2 player, Kasper Plasinski.
Yeah, and he is a Foothills alumni as well as Cavalry 2.
I believe he is a Foothills alumni, yes.
Yes, he's wearing a Foothills jersey, actually, in a Foothills Instagram post congratulating him on this call-up. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the YYC Soccer Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, so new episodes are waiting for you as soon as they're released. You can visit yycsoccer.com for our complete archive and links to purchase my book, Here Come the Cavalry, which is all about the history of professional soccer in Calgary. We love your feedback, so leave us a question on the website, connect with us on X, Instagram, or Blue Sky at YYCSoccer403. If you have a moment, please leave us a review, as it really helps other soccer fans discover the show. We'll be back soon with more stories from Calgary's soccer community. Until next time, keep supporting local soccer, and we'll see you at the match.